Introduction. Throughout history, humanity has created wonders that still defy explanation. Tools, devices, and materials so advanced, they seem almost impossible for their time. Some were lost to the ages, their secrets buried, their methods forgotten. Yet they remain, silent witnesses to a past far more mysterious than we imagine. Today, we uncover these lost technologies, and the secrets they may still hold. Shamir Stone. In the quiet echoes of ancient tradition, there is a recurring mention of a mysterious tool, one so extraordinary that it seemed to bend the rules of craftsmanship. This was the Shamir Stone, an object described in Jewish legends as the secret behind the construction of the Temple of Solomon. Its abilities, as the stories tell, defied the common knowledge of its time. It could cut through stone, metal, or any hard material without the use of heat, chisels, or hammers. The earliest accounts of the Shamir come from the Talmud and later writings, which weave together history and mysticism. According to these sources, King Solomon, tasked with building the first temple in Jerusalem, faced a divine restriction. No iron tools could be used in shaping the stones for this sacred place. The reasoning was symbolic. Iron, often used in weapons, was associated with conflict and bloodshed, and thus unfit for a house of peace. But this presented an immense practical challenge. Massive blocks of stone needed to be shaped with precision, yet without the instruments known to masons of the era. It was here that the Shamir entered the story. Some traditions claim it was not a stone at all, but a living creature, a tiny worm gifted to Solomon by God, capable of splitting the hardest rock simply by touching it. Others insist it was a crystalline or mineral substance, rare and possibly of extraterrestrial origin. The descriptions vary, but all agree on its unique property. It could alter the structure of any material it touched, as if dissolving its molecular bonds without force or noise. Legends speak of how the Shamir was kept under the strictest guard. It was said to be stored in lead containers, as lead was believed to block its mysterious energy. Only a handful of Solomon's most trusted craftsmen and priests were allowed near it. When it was needed, it would be brought out carefully, used to mark or split a block, and then returned immediately to its protective housing. The practical implications of such a tool are striking. In an age when construction relied on chisels, bronze, and later iron, the idea of effortlessly cutting and shaping massive stones borders on the impossible. Yet, the Temple of Solomon was built, and its grandeur, as recorded in historical and religious texts, was unmatched. The Shamir's role in this remains one of the most enduring mysteries. Over the centuries, attempts have been made to rationalize the tale. Some scholars suggest the Shamir could have been a form of naturally occurring radioactive mineral, capable of weakening stone on a microscopic level. Others think it may have been a lost chemical compound that reacted with certain materials, making them brittle and easier to shape. Still, these explanations remain speculative, as no physical evidence of the Shamir has ever been found. By the time of the Second Temple, the knowledge of the Shamir had vanished from history. The Talmud itself acknowledges its disappearance, noting that it was one of the wonders created at the twilight of the sixth day of creation. A poetic way of saying it was unique and unrepeatable. Without it, the building techniques reverted to more conventional methods, and the age of the Shamir quietly ended. Today, the Shamir stone stands as both a legend and a challenge. If it ever truly existed, it represents a technology that could work with the precision of modern tools, yet without the noise, dust, or destruction caused by conventional cutting. Whether a divine gift, an ingenious human invention, or a misunderstood natural phenomenon, its story remains suspended between history and myth, a reminder that the past may have held secrets more advanced than we imagine. Ark of the Covenant's power source. Among the most sacred objects described in ancient history, the Ark of the Covenant holds a place unlike any other. It is remembered primarily as a religious artifact, a chest built to house the stone tablets of the Ten Commandments. But beyond its symbolic role, the Ark is surrounded by accounts of phenomena that seem to suggest it possessed an unusual and powerful energy. In many ancient descriptions, the Ark is not merely a container. It is a device that produces light, emits destructive force, and inspires awe and fear in those who come too close. The original instructions for its construction are recorded in the Hebrew Bible, within the Book of Exodus. According to these descriptions, the ark was made from acacia wood, overlaid inside and out with pure gold. It measured just over a meter in length and less than a meter in height and width. On top of it was the so-called mercy seat, a solid gold lid flanked by 2 cherubim whose wings extended toward each other, forming a space above the ark that was considered the dwelling place of the divine presence. These details are often taken as purely ceremonial, but some researchers note the unusual combination of materials, an insulating wooden core covered in conductive gold, and wonder if this served more than a symbolic purpose. Historical accounts describe the ark as radiating an otherworldly power. In several passages, those who touched it improperly suffered sudden death. It was said to have caused burns, disease, or instant collapse in those unprepared for contact. In one story, when the Philistines captured the ark, they soon returned it after experiencing devastating illness and misfortune. The Levites, the priestly tribe entrusted with its care, followed precise handling rituals, often transporting it using wooden poles inserted through golden rings, ensuring no one touched the ark itself. Such care could be seen as purely ceremonial, or as a necessary precaution for an object that could discharge a dangerous energy. Some modern interpretations have ventured into the realm of engineering speculation. The ark's layered construction, insulating wood surrounded by conductive gold, topped with gold statues, has been compared to components found in electrical devices such as capacitors. In theory, if the ark were charged by a natural source, perhaps atmospheric electricity or contact with certain minerals, it could store a significant electrical potential. The cherubim on top, positioned with wings nearly touching, might serve as discharge points. Such a design, whether intentional or coincidental, could create effects that would shock or injure anyone making direct contact. Other theories suggest the ark's energy may not have been electrical in the conventional sense. Some point to the possibility of radiation, imagining the ark as a container for a powerful and dangerous material, perhaps something from a meteorite or a lost mineral with unusual properties. If this were the case, the strict handling rules and the storage of the ark within a separate chamber, the Holy of Holies, could be interpreted as protective measures not only for its sanctity, but also for the health of those nearby. In ancient battles, the ark was sometimes carried at the front lines. Accounts describe enemies scattering in fear and, at times, sudden environmental effects, lightning like flashes, the ground trembling, or strange sounds. While such descriptions can be read as religious exaggeration, they have also fueled the idea that the ark had the capacity to emit bursts of energy. Whether this energy was literal or perceived through the lens of faith, it gave the ark a reputation as both a holy relic and an unstoppable force. The disappearance of the ark from history adds to the mystery. Its last confirmed mention places it in the first temple of Jerusalem, built by Solomon. After the Babylonian conquest in the 6th century BCE, the ark vanishes from the record. Some traditions claim it was hidden before the invasion, perhaps beneath the Temple Mount, in a cave, or carried far away for safekeeping. Others suggest it was destroyed or dismantled. If it did contain an unknown power source, the knowledge of how it functioned was lost with its disappearance. In the centuries that followed, the ark became the subject of legend and speculation across cultures. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church maintains a tradition that it possesses the true ark, kept in the city of Aksum, though it is never displayed publicly. Various expeditions have sought it in Egypt, the Sinai Peninsula, and even as far as southern Africa, each inspired by the possibility that the ark's mystery might one day be solved. Yet, no verifiable evidence has been produced. What remains is the enduring enigma of its design. Was it a purely ceremonial object whose awe-inspiring descriptions stem from religious devotion? Or was it also a technological artifact, capable of storing and releasing energy in a way we no longer understand? The possibility that ancient artisans, guided by divine instruction or by practical knowledge now forgotten, could create such a device challenges our perception of what was possible in the ancient world. Today, the Ark of the Covenant exists at the intersection of history, faith, and lost science. It is a story passed down through millennia, containing threads of precise craftsmanship, ritual secrecy, an unexplained phenomena. Whether its power was symbolic, spiritual, or technological, the Ark remains one of humanity's most compelling mysteries. A reminder that some of the greatest inventions of the past may have been hidden not in laboratories, but in temples, and that their secrets may still be buried with the passage of time. Stradivarius Violins. In the world of music, few names carry the weight and reverence of Antonio Stradivari. His instruments, crafted in the late 17th and early 18th centuries in the small Italian town of Cremona, are not merely violins. They are icons of sound, unmatched in their clarity, richness, and balance. The Stradivarius violin has become a symbol of perfection, the standard by which all others are measured. And yet, despite centuries of study, the secret behind their unparalleled tone remains an unsolved mystery, a lost technology of the musical world. Antonio Stradivari was born in 1644, a craftsman in an age when violin making in Cremona had already reached a high level of sophistication. He was trained, most likely, in the workshop of Niccolò Amati, a master in his own right. But Stradivari's work went far beyond the conventions of his time. Between about 1660 and his death in 1737, he produced over 1,000 instruments, violins, violas, cellos, and guitars, each meticulously shaped and finished by hand. Of these, around 650 survive today, and many remain in active use by leading musicians across the globe. The tone of a Stradivarius is often described as having a unique combination of power and warmth, capable of projecting over a full orchestra while retaining a delicate subtlety. In blind listening tests, professional violinists and audiences alike have struggled to identify them. Yet those who have played the instrument speak of an immediate responsiveness, as though the violin becomes an extension of the player's own body. Achieving such qualities requires more than craftsmanship. It suggests a precise understanding of materials and acoustics that is, even now, difficult to replicate. Theories about Stradivari's methods are numerous. Some focus on the shape and dimensions of the instruments. Stradivari adjusted the arching of the violin's top and back plates to create an ideal balance of resonance and projection. Others point to the thickness of the wood, subtly varied in different parts of the instrument to enhance its vibrational qualities. These design choices can be measured and copied, and modern luthiers have done so. Yet their instruments still fail to fully reproduce the elusive Stradivarius sound. Attention has also turned to the wood itself. The spruce for the top and the maple for the back, ribs, and neck came from trees growing in the forests of northern Italy and the southern Alps. Some researchers believe Stradivari's wood had unique properties due to the so-called Little Ice Age, a period of cooler climate from the 14th to the 19th centuries. Trees grew more slowly during this time, producing denser wood with tighter growth rings, a factor that may have contributed to the violin's exceptional resonance. Chemical analysis has revealed another layer of mystery: the varnish. Stradivari's instruments are coated with a finish of remarkable beauty, with a golden red hue that has aged gracefully over centuries. This varnish, combined with an underlayer of mineral-rich treatment, may have played a role in shaping the sound by affecting how the wood vibrates. Despite countless experiments, no exact replica of the varnish's composition has been confirmed. Some suggest that Stradivari used a combination of plant resins, oils, and pigments, possibly enhanced by chemicals intended to protect the wood from insects or fungus. Even with modern technology, CT scans, electron microscopes, and spectral analysis, the precise interaction between Stradivari's materials, design, and craftsmanship eludes definitive explanation. It is not just one factor but a perfect harmony of them all, shaped by the hand and ear of a master who worked without the benefit of contemporary science, yet with an instinct that bordered on the supernatural. Over the centuries, many have tried to equal or surpass the Stradivarius. Great modern makers produce instruments of astonishing quality, and in certain contexts, they rival the old Cremonese violins. But the legend persists because of the combination of artistry, historical mystique, and the simple fact that Stradivari's violins have endured for over 300 years without losing their voice. Each one carries not only the physical materials of its making but also the history of every musician who has played it. Today, Stradivarius violins are treasures, valued at millions of dollars, played on the world's greatest stages, yet treated with the reverence of museum artifacts. They are loaned to elite musicians through foundations, ensuring that they remain living instruments rather than silent relics. Still, their true secret, the complete set of techniques and conditions that gave them life, seems destined to remain beyond our reach. Perhaps that is why they hold such fascination. The Stradivarius represents a human achievement where art and science meet, but where the final, most important ingredient remains intangible. Whether it was the wood of a colder age, the alchemy of the varnish, the subtle carving of the plates, or something known only to the man himself, Antonio Stradivari left behind not just instruments, but a legacy of sound that has yet to be recreated. They are, in a sense, a lost technology, one that sings to us still but whose making belongs to the past. Greek fire projectors. In the long history of warfare, few inventions have carried the same aura of fear and mystery as Greek fire. It was more than a weapon, it was a spectacle, a phenomenon that defied the expectations of its time. Deployed by the Byzantine Empire from the 7th century onward, it could turn the tide of naval battles, inspire panic in enemy fleets, and secure the empire's survival against overwhelming odds. While many cultures had discovered basic incendiary substances, Greek fire was something different. It could burn even on water, clinging to the surface and consuming ships in its path. Its method of projection, the devices that delivered this devastating substance, was as closely guarded as the formula itself, and today both are counted among the world's lost technologies. The origins of Greek fire are traced to the reign of Emperor Constantine IV, when the Byzantine navy faced the growing power of the Arab fleets. Around this time, a man named Kallinikos, often described as an engineer from Heliopolis in Syria, arrived in Constantinople. According to historical accounts, he brought with him the knowledge of a remarkable incendiary mixture, along with the design for a delivery system that could hurl it over distances. The emperor recognized its potential immediately, and Greek fire became a state secret, guarded with the same intensity as a royal treasury. The weapon was most famously deployed in naval warfare. The Byzantines fitted their ships with bronze or brass siphons mounted on the decks, often shaped like the heads of beasts or dragons. These siphons were connected to large, pressurized storage containers hidden within the hull. Through a combination of pumps and valves, the flammable liquid could be expelled as a stream toward enemy vessels. When it struck, the effect was catastrophic. The fire spread across the water's surface, sticking to wood, sails, and even armor, burning with such intensity that it seemed impossible to extinguish. Descriptions from the era tell of entire fleets falling into chaos as the weapon was unleashed. Enemy crews would leap into the sea, only to find the flames following them. Buckets of water were useless. Sand, vinegar, or even urine were reportedly the only ways to smother the blaze, and even these methods worked only in limited cases. The psychological impact was as great as the physical destruction. Few wished to face an enemy armed with a fire that seemed alive. The exact composition of Greek fire remains unknown. Some theories suggest it involved petroleum or naphtha, substances available in the ancient world through natural seeps. Others propose mixtures including quicklime, sulfur, and resin, which could ignite violently upon contact with water. Yet none of these reconstructions have fully replicated the legendary effects described in Byzantine sources. The true formula may have involved a combination of ingredients and precise preparation methods that have simply not survived in the historical record. Just as mysterious as the fuel itself were the projectors. The siphons used to launch Greek fire were feats of engineering. They needed to handle a volatile, pressurized liquid without leaking or losing strength in the heat of battle. The internal components were likely made of heat-resistant alloys, carefully fitted to withstand repeated use. The pumps would have required consistent pressure to project the stream far enough to strike enemy ships before they could close the distance. Diagrams from the period do not survive, and later depictions are often more symbolic than technical, leaving modern historians to speculate on their true design. What is certain is that these devices were built in secrecy. The workshops responsible for them were likely under imperial control, and craftsmen who knew the details of their construction were either sworn to lifelong secrecy or kept under close supervision. The risk of such a weapon falling into enemy hands was too great. If its components or formula were captured, it could be turned against the empire. Remarkably, despite centuries of conflict, no rival ever succeeded in fully duplicating it. Greek fire gave the Byzantines a decisive edge in key battles, most notably in the defense of Constantinople during sieges in the 7th and 8th centuries. In these moments, it was not just a weapon, but a guardian of the empire itself, preserving a city that would stand as the last bastion of the Eastern Roman world for nearly 1,000 years. Over time, however, the knowledge of its construction faded. The empire declined, workshops closed, and the guarded secrets passed out of living memory. Today, Greek fire stands as a reminder that ancient and medieval technology could be as sophisticated and as closely protected as anything in the modern age. The projectors that delivered it were not simple nozzles, but complex mechanisms, crafted for a single devastating purpose. Their absence from the archaeological record is part of what makes the mystery so enduring. Without them, we cannot truly reconstruct the weapon in its original form. It is possible that the last true Greek fire projectors were lost in the fires and lootings that accompanied the fall of Constantinople in 1204 and again in 1453. In the centuries since, imitators have come and gone, but none have captured the unique combination of range, persistence, and terror that made the weapon legendary. The Byzantines carried their secret to the grave, leaving behind only fragments of stories and the enduring image of fire surging across the waves, a weapon as much a marvel of engineering as it was a tool of war. Mithridate Poison Antidote. In the annals of ancient history, few names are as closely associated with the fear of poisoning as King Mithridates VI of Pontus. Born in 134 BCE, Mithridates ruled a Hellenistic kingdom along the southern coast of the Black Sea, a region caught between the expanding Roman Republic and the complex web of rival powers in the eastern Mediterranean. His reign was marked by constant intrigue, political enemies, and the ever-present danger of assassination, often by poison, a favored method of removing rulers in antiquity. According to historical accounts, Mithridates developed a near-obsessive fear of being poisoned. This fear, however, did not lead him to retreat into isolation. Instead, it spurred him toward a unique and unprecedented approach to survival: the creation of a universal antidote, a substance so powerful and comprehensive that it could counteract any toxin known at the time. This legendary preparation became known as Mithridate. Pliny the Elder, Galen, and other classical writers describe Mithridate as a complex mixture of herbs, roots, minerals, and animal-derived substances. Early reports claim it contained more than 50 different ingredients, among them opium, myrrh, saffron, cinnamon, and even ground viper flesh. The king is said to have consumed small doses of poisons regularly, training his body to withstand their effects. Over time, he allegedly increased the quantity of these poisons, pairing them with his antidote to fortify his immunity. This method of gradual adaptation became known as Mithridatism. Mithridate's commitment to this practice was not mere paranoia. His political enemies were many, and assassination plots were a constant threat. In the courts of the ancient world, where personal tasting of food and drink was a necessity for rulers, the ability to survive poisoning could mean the difference between a reign of decades and a reign cut short by a single sip of wine. The original recipe for Mithridate, if it ever existed in a precise, reproducible form, is now lost. Ancient physicians and apothecaries attempted to replicate it based on descriptions passed down through generations, but none could be certain of its exact proportions or preparation methods. The Romans, fascinated by its potential, adopted and adapted the formula, creating their own version called theriac. This Roman derivative endured in medical traditions for over a millennium, evolving through the Middle Ages and even into the Renaissance, where it was still considered a valuable treatment for a wide range of ailments. Modern science has examined the plausibility of such a panacea. While many of the reported ingredients have known medicinal properties, combining them into a single compound that neutralizes all poisons seems biologically improbable. Some components may have acted as mild antidotes to specific toxins, while others could have offered general health benefits or pain relief. The psychological factor, the belief in its efficacy, may also have contributed to its reputation. Yet, there remains a mystery. Ancient sources insist that Mithridates himself was proof of the antidote's power. When, after decades of defying Roman conquest, his fortunes turned and he faced capture, Mithridates reportedly attempted to take his own life by poison. To his frustration, the dose that would have been lethal to anyone else had no effect on him. According to legend, he was forced to ask a trusted ally to kill him with a sword, as no poison could end his life. Whether entirely true or partly mythologized, the story of the Mithridate antidote reflects the blend of science, superstition, and survival instinct in the ancient world. It represents a lost chapter in pharmacology, a time when rulers experimented with their own bodies, and when medical knowledge was closely guarded, passed from master to apprentice in guarded secrecy. Today, the idea of a universal antidote still fascinates scientists, but no modern equivalent has been found. The formula, if it ever truly existed, disappeared with the fall of Mithridate's kingdom, leaving only fragments of descriptions in ancient texts and the enduring legend of a king who tried to make himself untouchable. The Mithridate remains one of history's most intriguing examples of lost technology, an intersection of medicine, chemistry, and royal desperation, locked away in the past where science and myth intertwine. Arkalochori Axe Symbols. In 1934, a farmer digging in the small village of Arkalochori, on the Greek island of Crete, stumbled upon a remarkable find. Buried beneath the soil lay a bronze double-headed axe, known in the ancient Minoan world as a labris. At first, it seemed like just another artifact from Crete's rich archaeological record. But as the dirt was carefully brushed away, something unusual became apparent. The surface of the axe was covered with a series of strange symbols, unlike anything seen on typical Minoan tools or weapons. The labris itself was already an object of deep cultural significance in Minoan society. Depictions of it appear in frescoes, pottery, and religious iconography, often associated with rituals and possibly with the worship of a mother goddess or a bull cult. It was not primarily a weapon of war, but rather a ceremonial object, a symbol of power and perhaps of divine authority. Yet the Arkalochori axe was unlike any other ceremonial blade. It was larger, heavier, and covered in markings whose meaning has remained elusive for nearly a century. These symbols are arranged in an orderly fashion, carved with deliberate precision. They bear some resemblance to Linear A, the undeciphered script of the Minoans, but they also share similarities with the enigmatic signs on the Phaistos disk, another Minoan artifact that has baffled scholars. Some researchers believe the axe's markings could be an early or regional variant of Minoan script, perhaps used for a specialized purpose. Others propose that the symbols might represent a kind of proto-writing, pictorial emblems carrying ritual significance rather than a phonetic or alphabetic message. The mystery deepened when further excavations at Arkalochori revealed a small cave containing hundreds of bronze and silver votive weapons, including more axes of varying sizes, some inscribed, some plain. This discovery suggested that the site had been a place of religious offering, possibly connected to a cult that revered the double axe as a sacred symbol. If so, the inscribed labris may have played a central role in ceremonial events, perhaps as an object used in blessings, initiations, or sacrifices. Despite decades of study, no one has been able to provide a definitive translation of the Arkalochori symbols. Linguists who have compared the markings to Linear A note that the resemblance is imperfect. Some symbols do not appear anywhere else in the Minoan corpus. This raises the possibility that the axe contains a local dialect or a private code, understood only by members of a particular priesthood or elite group. If the Minoan palaces each maintain their own script traditions, this axe could be a rare surviving example of one such localized system. One of the most tantalizing theories connects the Arkalochori axe to the Phaistos disk. Both artifacts date roughly to the same era, and both bear stylized, recurring symbols arranged in deliberate patterns. It has been suggested that they might belong to a broader, now-lost system of Minoan communication, something more than mere ornamentation, but less than a full, standardized writing system. This would place them in a liminal space between art and language, much like the ceremonial glyphs of other ancient cultures. Then there are the more speculative ideas. Some fringe researchers propose that the symbols might encode astronomical data, agricultural calendars, or even myths and chants, designed to be read aloud during rituals. Others imagine the axe as a repository of esoteric knowledge, passed down among generations of Minoan priests. A few even go so far as to suggest contact with distant civilizations, pointing to superficial similarities between the Arkalochori signs and those found in Anatolia or the Near East. What complicates the study further is the fact that the Minoan civilization left no bilingual inscriptions, no Rosetta Stone, to bridge the gap between their script and any known language. Without that key, scholars are forced to rely on pattern recognition, contextual clues, and comparisons with related cultures. The result is a puzzle that may never be solved, especially given the scarcity of artifacts bearing similar inscriptions. Today, the Arkalochori axe is displayed in the Heraklion Archaeological Museum, where visitors can examine its mysterious markings up close. For some, it is simply a beautiful relic of a vanished civilization. For others, it is a whisper from the distant past, an encoded message from a culture whose voice has been lost for over 3,000 years. The allure of the axe lies not only in what it is, but in what it refuses to reveal. It is a reminder that even in an age of advanced technology and global scholarship, some fragments of human history remain shrouded in silence. Whether the symbols are a prayer, a proclamation, or something entirely beyond our current imagination, they stand as an enduring testament to the depth and complexity of Minoan culture, and to the secrets the ancient world still keeps. Ureilite Nanodiamonds. Deep within the cold darkness of space, fragments of ancient asteroids silently travel for millions, even billions, of years before crossing paths with Earth. Some of these fragments carry clues to events far older than our planet itself, records of cosmic processes that shaped the early solar system. Among these fragments are the Ureilites, a rare class of meteorites that hold within them something extraordinary: nanodiamonds. Ureilites are a type of achondrite meteorite, meaning they lack the primitive chondrules found in many other space rocks. Their composition is unique, rich in carbon and often dark in appearance. But it is the form in which this carbon appears that has fascinated scientists for decades. Within these meteorites, under the microscope, are found diamonds, not large gemstones like those mined on Earth, but unimaginably small crystals measured in nanometers. These are the nanodiamonds of space. The story of these diamonds begins not on Earth, but in violent astronomical events. One prevailing theory suggests that these nanodiamonds formed during catastrophic impacts in space, when massive collisions between asteroids generated pressures and temperatures sufficient to turn carbon into diamond. Another possibility is that they formed inside dying stars before our solar system even existed, condensing in stellar explosions and later becoming part of the dust cloud from which planets formed. The Ureilite meteorites themselves are thought to be remnants of a destroyed protoplanet, a body that once existed early in the history of the solar system, but was shattered by a colossal collision. In this scenario, the shock wave of the impact could have compressed the carbon within it into diamonds. Some of these diamonds may even be older than the Sun, serving as tiny, unaltered messengers from the universe's distant past. What makes the nanodiamonds in Ureilites so mysterious is not just their origin, but their properties. These diamonds often contain complex inclusions of metals and other minerals, forming structures that are rarely, if ever, found in Earth-made diamonds. The specific arrangements of atoms and the tiny impurities within them tell a story of formation conditions vastly different from anything humans have been able to reproduce in a laboratory. Even with modern technology, creating nanodiamonds with the same structural characteristics as those in Ureilites has proven extremely challenging. They have unusual crystal defects and patterns that may point to unique formation pressures, perhaps hundreds of gigapascals, far beyond most industrial processes. This means that even with our advanced methods, we can only mimic, not truly replicate, what nature achieved in the vacuum of space or under the unimaginable violence of planetary collisions. The discovery of these diamonds has implications that stretch beyond mineralogy. They are a kind of time capsule locking away information about the early solar system, the environments of ancient stars, and the physics of high-energy cosmic events. By studying them, scientists can probe into a period of history that no other record captures. A time before Earth was born, when the building blocks of planets drifted through space. The largest of these spaceborne diamonds, still microscopic, are only a few micrometers across, while the smallest measure just a few nanometers. Yet despite their size, they have withstood eons of cosmic radiation, impacts, and heat during their journey to Earth. This durability is part of their mystery. How could such delicate-seeming structures survive so much violence without being reduced to graphite or dust? Ureilite nanodiamonds have been recovered from meteorites that fell in various parts of the world, each sample adding more detail to the puzzle. Their presence suggests that diamond formation in space may be far more common than previously thought, occurring not just in the interiors of large planets, but in the debris of shattered worlds and the shockwaves of ancient explosions. Today, these diamonds sit in laboratories, locked behind glass and studied with the most advanced microscopes and spectrometers. Each analysis peels back another layer of their history, but the full picture remains elusive. Were they forged in the heart of a supernova, in the collision of protoplanets, or under some process we have yet to imagine? The answer may require new physics, or at least new ways of looking at the formation of matter itself. For now, Ureilite nanodiamonds remain one of science's most tantalizing lost technologies. Not because they were ever made by human hands, but because they represent a natural process of creation that we still cannot fully understand, let alone reproduce. They are fragments of a cosmic craft older than Earth, whispering a story that began long before our planet's first sunrise. Saqqara Bird. In 1898, while cataloging artifacts in a storage room of the Egyptian Museum in Cairo, archaeologists stumbled upon an object that seemed out of place. It was small, carved from lightweight sycamore wood, and worn by time. Yet its shape instantly caught the eye. It did not resemble the animals, gods, or symbols typically found in ancient Egyptian art. Instead, it looked aerodynamic. This artifact, later known as the Saqqara Bird, measures about 18 centimeters from beak to tail, with a wingspan of 14 centimeters. It dates back to around 200 BCE and was discovered in the Saqqara necropolis, a vast burial site near the ancient city of Memphis. To most observers, it is shaped unmistakably like a bird, yet with features that seem more mechanical than natural. Its wings are fixed like those of a modern glider. Its tail, rather than fanning out like a real bird's, is vertical, more akin to the rudder of an aircraft. The object's purpose remains a mystery. The most conventional explanation is that it was a simple wooden toy or a ceremonial object, perhaps a symbol of the falcon god Horus, a deity closely associated with the sky and kingship. In ancient Egypt, birds often represented the soul's journey after death, so the Saqqara bird may have been intended to help guide the deceased in their spiritual flight to the afterlife. But some researchers have suggested more provocative possibilities. In the 1960s, Dr. Khalil Messaha, an Egyptian physician and amateur archaeologist, examined the artifact and became convinced that it represented an ancient understanding of aerodynamics. He noted that the design bore similarities to modern aircraft, particularly gliders, and hypothesized that it might be a scaled-down model of a larger flying machine. According to Messaha, the absence of legs and the precise symmetry of the wings were not typical of artistic depictions of birds in Egyptian art. Instead, they might point to a functional, aerodynamic design. This interpretation quickly captured the imagination of alternative historians and ancient technology enthusiasts. If the ancient Egyptians had indeed experimented with flight, the implications would be profound, rewriting our understanding of what ancient civilizations were capable of. Supporters of this theory argue that the Egyptians, with their advanced knowledge of engineering and architecture, might have applied similar ingenuity to exploring the skies. However, mainstream Egyptology remains cautious. There is no other direct evidence that ancient Egyptians built or flew aircraft, and no textual records describing such experiments have ever been found. The Saqqara bird could easily be a stylized representation of a bird in flight, with the vertical tail simply a result of artistic convention rather than engineering intent. Some researchers believe it was a weather vane, a toy, or even part of the masthead of a ceremonial boat. Still, the mystery persists because of the bird's unusual proportions. Modern aerodynamic tests have shown that, if fitted with a horizontal stabilizer, missing from the original, the Saqqara bird's design could indeed allow for stable gliding. In fact, scaled replicas with this modification have been flown successfully in wind tunnel experiments. lending fuel to the idea that its creators might have had some practical knowledge of flight principles, whether by intention or coincidence. The artifact also raises another question. Why was it found in a tomb? If it was merely a toy, why was it buried with the dead? Was it a favorite possession, a symbolic guide to the afterlife, or something else entirely? Ancient Egyptian burial customs were deeply symbolic, and objects placed in tombs often served a purpose in the next world. Perhaps, to its owner, the Saqqara bird represented freedom, speed, or divine connection with the sky gods. Over the years, the Saqqara bird has become an icon in discussions about out-of-place artifacts, objects that seem to defy the technological limits of their time. Whether it was truly a model of an ancient glider or simply a symbolic carving, it embodies the fascination and enigma of Egypt's long history. The same civilization that built the pyramids and mastered stoneworking techniques still unmatched in some respects might well have been capable of more than our current records reveal. Today, the Saqqara bird rests behind glass in the Egyptian Museum, where visitors often pause to look twice. Its smooth, weathered wood and elegant lines seem almost modern, as though it belongs to a different timeline. In its silence, it keeps its secrets, whether those secrets are of symbolic art, forgotten ritual, or a glimpse of ancient flight. In the end, the Saqqara bird stands as a reminder that history is not a perfectly written book, but a fragmented puzzle. Each artifact is a piece, and some pieces seem to belong to a picture we can't yet see. Ajanta Cave Paint Preservation. Deep within the basalt cliffs of Maharashtra, India, lies a complex of rock-cut chambers known as the Ajanta Caves, carved into a sweeping horseshoe-shaped gorge above the Waghra River. These 30 caves are a masterpiece of ancient Buddhist art and architecture, dating back as far as the 2nd century BCE. Inside, the walls, ceilings, and pillars are adorned with vivid murals, paintings that, despite being more than 2,000 years old, still retain much of their color, detail, and beauty. The sheer survival of these paintings is remarkable. Most ancient artworks, exposed to centuries of humidity, wind, and light, fade into shadows of their former selves. Organic pigments decay, mineral colors erode, and the binding agents that hold the paint to the surface break down over time. Yet the Ajanta murals have endured, not as faint outlines, but as vibrant narratives of the Buddha's life, mythical scenes, and glimpses into the everyday world of ancient India. Their preservation is a puzzle that blends geology, chemistry, and ancient craftsmanship. The caves themselves were cut directly into hard volcanic basalt, a rock that is naturally resistant to erosion. The location of the gorge provides partial protection from direct sunlight, keeping the interiors dim and cool. But geology alone cannot explain the color's survival. The pigments and the mysterious binding materials are what hold the true secret. Analysis of the paintings shows that the artists used natural minerals like red and yellow ochre, lapis lazuli for deep blues, malachite for greens, and lamp black for rich shadows. These pigments, ground into fine powders, were mixed with an unknown binding medium and applied over a carefully prepared plaster surface. The plaster, made from a blend of clay, powdered rock, and possibly organic additives, formed a perfectly smooth base. On this surface, the artists worked with precision, layering pigments to create depth and detail. But the real mystery lies in how this combination resisted the ravages of time. Some researchers believe that the binding medium may have included plant-based resins or animal-derived glues with unique preservative qualities. Others suggest that microscopic mineral films formed over the paintings, sealing in the pigments. There are even theories that the artists applied a final protective coating, something transparent and water-resistant, that acted like an ancient varnish. Environmental conditions within the caves have also played a role. For centuries, the remote location shielded the paintings from constant human interference. The stable temperature and relatively low humidity inside the rock-cut chambers slowed chemical reactions that typically degrade organic binders. The caves were abandoned for long stretches of history, and during those periods of neglect, the paintings were left in darkness, away from light-induced fading. However, preservation has not been perfect. When the caves were rediscovered in 1819 by a British hunting party, The sudden influx of visitors introduced new threats. Smoke from torches, moisture from breath, and even misguided attempts at cleaning caused damage. In some areas, pigments have flaked away or dulled. Yet, compared to most ancient wall paintings, the survival of the Ajanta murals is extraordinary. Modern conservationists continue to study the techniques of the Ajanta artists, hoping to unlock the secrets of their preservation methods. By analyzing microscopic samples, they seek to identify the precise composition of the binding agents and surface coatings. Understanding this could not only explain the painting's survival but also provide methods to protect other vulnerable works of art around the world. Standing before an Ajanta mural today is like looking through a window into another age. You see the delicate folds of painted fabric, the subtle shading of a face, the intricate patterns of jewelry, all rendered by hands that worked more than 2 millennia ago. The colors, though softened by time, still speak with clarity, carrying stories of devotion, philosophy, and daily life. The mystery of how these paintings have endured is more than just a question for historians. It is a testament to the skill of ancient artisans, to the possibility that people of the past knew techniques that modern science has yet to fully rediscover. And as researchers carefully examine each brushstroke and pigment grain, the Ajanta murals continue to guard their secret, holding within them an unbroken link to the creative spirit of a long-vanished world. Mohenjo-Daro city planning. On the dusty plains of the Indus River, beneath layers of earth and centuries of silence, lies the ancient city of Mohenjo-Daro. Built more than 4,000 years ago, during the height of the Indus Valley civilization, it is one of humanity's earliest known examples of sophisticated urban design. Today, its crumbling brick walls and weathered streets seem quiet, yet every block, every drain, every brick is a whisper from a time when human society had already mastered the art of planned cities. The most striking thing about Mohenjo-Daro is not its age, but its order. Unlike many ancient settlements that grew haphazardly over time, this city appears to have been laid out according to a deliberate and carefully executed plan. Archaeologists describe it as being arranged on a grid system, broad streets running north to south, intersected by smaller lanes at perfect right angles. From above, it would have looked astonishingly modern, more like a 20th century city than one from the Bronze Age. The streets themselves were wide and straight, allowing for easy movement of people and goods. Side lanes connected the main roads to clusters of residential and commercial buildings. This kind of layout suggests that the city was not only well-planned but also built with foresight, designed to accommodate its population efficiently and to manage traffic, both human and animal. Beneath the streets lay another marvel, a complex drainage system. Covered channels ran along the sides of roads, carrying wastewater away from homes and public spaces. In some places, there were inspection holes built into the drains, allowing for cleaning and maintenance. Each house, regardless of size, seems to have had access to this system. Wastewater from private bathrooms and washing areas could be channeled into the covered drains, reducing contamination and disease. This level of public sanitation would not be seen again in much of the world for thousands of years. Water supply was equally impressive. Archaeologists have uncovered numerous wells scattered throughout the city, many lined with finely fitted bricks. Some larger structures appear to have functioned as public baths, most famously the Great Bath, a massive watertight pool with steps descending into it from all sides. Its purpose remains uncertain. Some believe it was used for ritual purification. Others think it might have been a communal gathering place. Either way, its construction shows a deep understanding of water management and public infrastructure. The city's residential buildings reveal even more about its organization. Most homes were built from standardized baked bricks, suggesting that brickmaking was a highly organized industry. The houses ranged from modest single-room dwellings to multi-story homes with courtyards. Yet even the simpler ones were equipped with drainage and access to water. Many houses had flat roofs, which may have been used for sleeping during hot nights or for household activities. Public spaces were also part of the design. Large open courtyards may have served as markets or meeting areas. Storage buildings, likely used for grain, point to a centralized system for managing resources. This degree of organization hints at an administrative authority capable of overseeing not only construction but also the economic and social life of the city. And yet, for all its sophistication, Mohenjo-Daro holds mysteries. There are no surviving records of its rulers, no palaces or temples on the scale seen in Mesopotamia or Egypt. Some scholars speculate that power was more distributed, that the city may have been governed by councils or a collective authority rather than a single monarch. The uniformity of housing quality and access to infrastructure suggests a society where resources were more evenly shared than in many ancient cultures. The level of urban planning also raises questions about the civilization's knowledge. How did they survey land so precisely? How did they decide on the optimal street widths and drainage slopes? These choices reflect not just practical engineering but also an understanding of how to build a healthy, functioning urban environment. It suggests that the Indus Valley people valued cleanliness, efficiency, and communal well-being, values that still resonate in modern urban design. Sadly, the reasons for Mohenjo-Daro's decline remain unclear. Around 1900 BCE, the city began to be abandoned. Some theories point to changes in river courses that disrupted trade and agriculture. Others suggest environmental degradation or a gradual economic collapse. There is no definitive evidence of war or catastrophic destruction, only the slow fading of a once great city. Over time, its bricks were taken for other building projects, and the site lay buried under centuries of silt and sand. When British archaeologists began excavating Mohenjo-Daro in the 1920s, they uncovered not just an ancient city but a vision of urban life far ahead of its time. Walking its streets today, you can still trace the careful lines of its planner's vision. You can stand by the Great Bath and imagine the sound of water splashing, the voices of people gathering, the hum of a city alive with trade, craftsmanship, and daily life. In the end, Mohenjo-Daro's greatest legacy may be the lesson that thoughtful planning can endure beyond the rise and fall of civilizations. The bricks may crumble, the streets may fall silent, but the principles that shaped them, order, sanitation, accessibility, remain as relevant now as they were 4 millennia ago. It is a reminder that in the story of human progress, the desire to build better, cleaner, and more connected communities is as old as civilization itself. Sacsayhuamán stone cutting. High above the ancient city of Cusco, in the Andes of Peru, lies the monumental fortress of Sacsayhuamán, a place that continues to intrigue historians, archaeologists, and engineers alike. The sheer scale and precision of its stonework have made it one of the most enduring examples of lost construction techniques in human history. The fortress walls, composed of enormous limestone and andesite blocks, fit together so perfectly that not even the thinnest blade can slide between them. No mortar was used, yet the structure has stood for centuries, surviving earthquakes that destroyed lesser buildings. The mystery lies not only in how these stones were transported but also in how they were shaped and positioned with such exacting precision. The largest stones at Sacsayhuamán weigh over 120 tons, some estimates suggesting certain blocks exceed even that figure. The source quarries are thought to have been located several kilometers away, yet somehow these massive rocks were moved across rugged, mountainous terrain. Modern experiments have attempted to recreate the process using ropes, wooden rollers, and manpower, but the difficulty has proven immense, and the exact methods remain elusive. Equally astonishing is the way each stone appears to have been uniquely shaped to interlock with its neighbors. No two blocks are identical. Every one is a custom fit, carved to nestle perfectly into the surrounding stones. The result is a wall that resists not only time but also seismic shocks. In earthquake-prone Peru, the slight inward tilt of the walls combined with the irregular, puzzle-like stone shapes allows the structure to shift minutely during tremors, dispersing the force without collapsing. This sophisticated engineering suggests that the builders had a deep understanding of both geology and seismic behavior. The tools available to the Inca civilization, at least according to conventional archaeology, were made of stone, bronze, and copper, none of which could easily cut or shape the extremely hard andesite stones. This has fueled speculation about how the surfaces were worked so smoothly and with such precision. Some theories propose that the Incas used a process of abrasion with sand and water, grinding the stones slowly over long periods. Others suggest the possible use of heating and rapid cooling to fracture the rock, though evidence for this remains limited. Sacsayhuamán's layout is also striking. The fortress walls form a zigzag pattern across the hillside, giving the structure both defensive strength and aesthetic grandeur. The complex once included towers, terraces, ceremonial areas, and possibly even water channels. The scale of the project would have required extraordinary organization, labor management, and knowledge of construction logistics. Even with large workforces, moving and fitting such massive stones without modern cranes or machinery is an achievement that defies easy explanation. When the Spanish arrived in the 16th century, they were astonished by the fortress. Many stones from the site were later dismantled and reused in the construction of colonial Cusco, yet the largest blocks remained in place, immovable despite attempts to dislodge them. Today, Sacsayhuamán stands as both a historical treasure and an enigma, an enduring testament to the ingenuity and skill of its builders. The precise techniques used to cut, transport, and assemble the stones remain one of archaeology's great unanswered questions. Whether these methods were the result of generations of specialized knowledge, experimental ingenuity, or techniques that have simply been forgotten over time, Sacsayhuamán continues to inspire awe. In its silent, weathered stones lies a story of mastery over nature, a story whose final chapter is still unwritten. Codex Gigas ink recipe. Deep within the archives of medieval Europe lies one of the most famous and mysterious manuscripts ever created, the Codex Gigas, often called the Devil's Bible. Weighing around 75 kilograms and measuring nearly a meter tall, this massive book contains the entire Latin Vulgate Bible, various historical chronicles, and numerous other texts, all written in a single, incredibly consistent hand. But beyond its imposing size and legendary origin stories lies another fascinating mystery. The ink. The recipe for the ink used in the Codex Gigas remains an enigma, and its qualities have puzzled researchers for decades. At first glance, the writing seems typical of medieval manuscripts, dark, bold, and remarkably well-preserved despite being over 800 years old. However, unlike many other manuscripts of its time, the Codex Gigas shows almost no fading. The consistency of the color throughout hundreds of pages is astonishing, especially given the belief that the book was completed in an unusually short time. Most inks of the Middle Ages were made from gall nuts, iron salts, and gum arabic, producing a dark, iron gall ink that often turns brown with age and can damage parchment over centuries. Yet the Codex Gigas ink remains rich and deep, without the corrosive degradation commonly seen. Scientific analyses of microscopic ink samples have revealed a curious composition. The base appears to be iron gall ink, but there are unusual additives, possibly plant-based dyes or mineral pigments, that have stabilized the color over the centuries. Some researchers suggest that carbon black, derived from soot, may have been mixed into the formula to enhance longevity. Others believe that the scribe used a unique preparation process that sealed the ink into the parchment fibers, preventing oxidation and fading. The precise combination of ingredients and preparation steps, however, remains unknown. Another puzzle is the sheer volume of ink required. The Codex Gigas contains over 300 pages of densely written text, which would have demanded liters of ink. Producing this much in a single, uniform batch without modern chemistry would have been a monumental task. The scribe, possibly a single monk working alone, would have needed a steady supply of identical ink to avoid visible changes in color or texture. This consistency suggests meticulous planning and a deep knowledge of ink-making chemistry far beyond ordinary scribal work. Some medieval legends claim that the Codex Gigas was written in a single night through a pact with the devil, a story that arose partly because of the eerie illustration of a horned figure within the manuscript. In reality, the work likely took years, if not decades, to complete, but the uniform ink still raises questions. Even over years of work, natural variations in water, plant materials, and weather could have altered the ink's composition. That such variation is absent implies that the recipe was carefully guarded and precisely replicated each time it was made. There are also whispers of lost alchemical knowledge in the ink. Some historians point out that medieval monastic scriptoria were not only centers of copying but also of experimentation. monks had access to exotic trade goods, from rare resins and gums to mineral powders brought from distant lands. It is possible that the Codex Gigas ink incorporated ingredients from outside Europe, materials whose exact properties and sources are now lost. A trace amount of copper, lead, or other metallic salts could have contributed to the ink's unusual stability and resistance to fading. Today, the Codex Gigas is preserved in the National Library of Sweden, its pages as vivid as they were centuries ago. While modern science can identify some elements of the ink, the complete recipe remains speculative. The lack of historical records on its preparation suggests it may have been a secret known only to the manuscript's creator, taken to the grave without ever being written down. In the end, the Codex Gigas ink is more than just a writing medium. It is a silent witness to a remarkable feat of craftsmanship. Each letter on its vast pages carries with it the mystery of a vanished skill, a medieval chemistry that has resisted full reconstruction even in our age of technology. As long as the book endures, so too will the unanswered question. How did one scribe create an ink that could defy time itself? Nebra Sky Disk. In 1999, on a wooded hill near the small town of Nebra in Sacsayhuamán, Germany, two men searching illegally with metal detectors unearthed something that would change the way historians think about prehistoric Europe. Among fragments of swords, axes, and bracelets, they found a flat, circular bronze disc about 32 centimeters in diameter, inlaid with gold symbols. At first, it seemed like a curious piece of ancient art, but as archaeologists began to study it, they realized it was far more than decoration. The Nebra Sky Disk turned out to be the oldest known concrete depiction of the cosmos, a Bronze Age artifact that combined artistic beauty with advanced astronomical knowledge. The disk is made of bronze, with inlays of gold that form a composition unlike anything else from its era. At its center is a round golden circle, generally interpreted as either the sun or a full moon. To one side is a crescent shape, a clear representation of a crescent moon. Scattered around these are clusters of smaller gold circles, which experts have identified as stars. The most prominent of these is a group of 7, interpreted as the Pleiades, a star cluster that has held symbolic meaning for many cultures. The arrangement suggests that the people who created the disk were not simply stargazers. They were careful observers of celestial patterns, aware of how the positions of stars and moons changed with the seasons. Archaeologists date the Nebra Sky Disk to around 1600 BCE, during the European Bronze Age. This makes it roughly 3,600 years old, predating Greek and Babylonian star maps. It was created long before writing was introduced to the region, meaning its creators recorded their astronomical knowledge in the only way they could, through symbols and visual representation. The fact that such a precise and complex piece existed at this time indicates that Bronze Age societies in Central Europe were far more sophisticated than previously thought, capable of integrating metallurgy, astronomy, and symbolic art. Over time, the disk underwent modifications. Initially, it contained only the celestial symbols, the sun or moon, the crescent, and the stars. Later, 2 golden arcs were added along opposite edges of the disk, representing the horizon lines of sunrise and sunset at the summer and winter solstices. This addition would have transformed the disk into a practical tool for tracking the solar year, allowing its owners to determine when to begin agricultural activities or hold seasonal rituals. Finally, a third modification added a golden arc at the bottom, interpreted by some scholars as a representation of a solar boat, a motif found in ancient Egyptian and Nordic mythology, symbolizing the sun's journey across the sky and through the underworld. The astronomical accuracy of the disk is one of its most striking features. The angle between the horizon arcs matches the angle between sunrise and sunset at the latitude of central Germany during the solstices, about 82 degrees. This precision suggests the makers had an observational tradition stretching back generations. They likely used wooden posts or stone alignments as markers to watch the sun's movement across the horizon, recording their findings in oral tradition until they were encoded on the disk. The discovery of the Nebra Sky Disk also challenges long-held assumptions about cultural exchange in prehistoric Europe. Its creators had access to bronze metallurgy, which required complex trade networks to obtain copper and tin from distant regions. The gold inlays likely came from rivers in the Carpathian Basin. This implies the disk's makers were part of a broad cultural and economic network that exchanged not only materials but also ideas, including astronomical knowledge that may have been influenced by Near Eastern or Mediterranean civilizations. For archaeologists, the disk is a rare fusion of science, religion, and art. In the Bronze Age, the sky was more than a subject of curiosity. It was deeply tied to survival and spiritual belief. Celestial events dictated the agricultural calendar, while constellations and lunar cycles were woven into myths and rituals. The Nebra Sky Disk seems to embody this dual role, a functional calendar for farming and navigation, and a sacred object for ceremonies honoring the heavens. The context of its burial is equally fascinating. The disk was found alongside weapons and jewelry, all deliberately deposited on the Middleburg Hill. This was not a casual loss. It was an intentional burial, possibly as an offering to the gods or as part of a ritual to retire sacred objects. Its placement on a hill with a panoramic view of the surrounding landscape may have had symbolic significance, connecting earth and sky in a final act of devotion. After its discovery, the disk's journey to public knowledge was almost as dramatic as its ancient history. Because it was found by illegal treasure hunters, it was initially sold on the black market and passed between collectors before being seized by police in 2002. It now resides in the State Museum of Prehistory in Halle, Germany, where it has become one of the most famous archaeological finds in the country. Modern scientific analysis has confirmed its authenticity, although there was debate in the early 2000s when some skeptics questioned whether it might be a modern forgery. Today, however, the consensus is clear. The Nebra Sky Disk is genuine and unparalleled in prehistoric archaeology. Its legacy is profound. The disk forces us to reconsider the intellectual capabilities of prehistoric Europeans, showing they could produce symbolic records of the cosmos as sophisticated as those of contemporary civilizations in Egypt or Mesopotamia. It also demonstrates that astronomy was not an isolated science, but was deeply embedded in the social, economic, and spiritual life of early societies. As we look at the Nebra Sky Disk today, we see more than an artifact. We see a message from the distant past, an echo of a people who stood beneath the same sky we see now, watching the sun set, the moon wax and wane, and the Pleiades rise in the dark of autumn evenings. Across 3,600 years, their golden symbols still shine, preserving a moment when humanity first tried to capture the heavens in their hands. Roman dodecahedrons, scattered across Europe, from the green fields of England to the valleys of Italy, small bronze objects have been unearthed that continue to puzzle historians. They are about the size of a clenched fist, perfectly symmetrical with 12 flat faces. Each face is shaped like a pentagon and features a circular hole in its center. The holes vary in diameter, and small knobs protrude from each corner. They are known today as Roman dodecahedrons, and no one truly knows what purpose they served. Archaeologists have found more than 100 of these artifacts, often dating to the 2nd or 3rd century CE. They are typically made of bronze, sometimes copper alloy, and are crafted with striking precision. Despite their simple geometry, creating such an object in ancient times required skilled casting and finishing. Each example is slightly different. Holes of varying sizes, different diameters, and sometimes patterns engraved on the surface. Yet all share the same general shape, suggesting a standardized concept whose meaning has been lost. Strangely, no Roman texts mention these objects. The empire's records are filled with detailed accounts of architecture, tools, and military equipment. Yet the dodecahedron appears nowhere in surviving literature. This absence has allowed speculation to flourish. Without a written explanation, scholars must rely only on the artifacts themselves and the contexts in which they were found. Many were discovered in rural areas, sometimes alongside coins and pottery, occasionally near military sites. Some believe they were used as measuring devices, perhaps to estimate distances in the field, or to calculate optimal sowing times for crops based on the sun's angle. The varying hole sizes might have acted as a kind of rangefinder, allowing the viewer to align the edges of two holes to estimate distance. This theory is plausible, yet no clear evidence confirms it. Others suggest they may have been used in weaving, perhaps as tools to create complex patterns in textiles. The holes could have guided threads of different thicknesses, producing consistent designs. In certain sites, traces of wax have been found on their surfaces, prompting another hypothesis: that they were used as molds or candle holders. If candles were placed inside, the varying holes would project light in intricate patterns, creating both a practical and decorative effect. There are also suggestions of ceremonial or religious use. The geometric perfection of the dodecahedron, a shape with 12 equal faces, may have held symbolic meaning. In some ancient traditions, the number 12 was sacred, representing months, zodiac signs, or divine cycles. If used in rituals, these objects might have served as symbolic tools, their purpose known only to a select group. What makes the mystery deeper is the sheer spread of their discovery. Roman dodecahedrons have been found from Scotland to Hungary, in places that differed in climate, culture, and Roman military presence. Their presence across such a vast territory suggests they were more than a regional curiosity. They were known, at least in some circles, throughout the empire. And yet, without written records, the shared knowledge of their purpose disappeared when Rome's influence waned. Attempts to recreate their possible uses have been made by experimental archaeologists. Some have built replicas to test the measuring device theory, finding that it could indeed estimate distance. Others have tried weaving through them, successfully producing patterned chords. Even so, none of these experiments can be confirmed as historically accurate. They remain possibilities, not proofs. The craftsmanship itself tells a story of a civilization capable of precision and artistry in metalwork. Casting a bronze dodecahedron required a well-made mold, consistent alloy composition, and careful finishing to ensure symmetry. This was not an object that could be made in haste. It was deliberate, planned, and valued enough to be kept and transported. That care suggests the dodecahedron was important, even if its purpose remains hidden. The enigma of the Roman dodecahedron lies not only in its unknown function, but in how completely that knowledge vanished. It is rare for an object to appear so frequently in the archaeological record yet be so absent from historical description. Perhaps the knowledge was never written down at all, existing only as oral tradition among certain craftsmen, merchants, or priests. When those people passed away, so too did the understanding. Today, Roman dodecahedrons sit in museum cases, their bronze surfaces dulled by centuries underground, the edges softened by time. Visitors lean closer, tracing the lines of the pentagonal faces, peering through the circular holes, trying to imagine the hands that once held them. Whatever their original purpose, be it scientific, practical, or symbolic, they remain as silent witnesses to a forgotten chapter of Roman ingenuity. The mystery endures because it invites the imagination to fill the silence. In these 12-sided shapes, the ancient world whispers, but never explains. And so, each dodecahedron remains both an object and a question. An artifact without an answer, a piece of history that refuses to be solved. Ending. And so, our journey through the mysteries of lost technologies comes to an end. But the questions remain. Each of these creations, whether forged in stone, metal, or legend, carries a whisper from the past that we may never fully understand. If you enjoyed this exploration, leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and tell us which mystery fascinated you most. And if you haven't already, subscribe so you won't miss our next journey into the unknown. Until then, may your curiosity never fade.